What is going on, guys? It's Jack Wood out here. I'm here with a very special guest, Elise Michaud, today. We're going to do something a little bit different, and that's why I'm looking at the camera right now. But I've also got something recording right here because we are going to be doing a podcast, and the topic is going to be basically based around Antwon Rose and the greater injustice that I believe exists. I put a tweet out yesterday, and it caught a little bit of fire. So as a result, I felt that it was necessary for me to kind of explain myself, talk about how I feel as a white male, and then obviously bring Elise in that can give us a little bit more light on how she feels about the situation also. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wow, you're my first guest. I don't know how this is going to kind of manifest. You know, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think it's been the topic, and you know, obviously we've wanted to do one for a little bit, and we've kind of been like, well, what do we talk about? So,
right.
So here we are. I know.
It's funny how a plan comes together, right?
It is, and it was just, I saw that yesterday, and I thought, this is it. This is what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
So yeah, for any of you that don't know, Antwon Rose was fatally shot in Pittsburgh. When was the date of that? It was
in the fall, I believe September.
Yeah, and recently, what kind of made this like resurface is the police officer got found not guilty. So as a result, obviously, then that sparked a little bit of an outrage for some people who thought that he should have been found guilty, as Antwon was actually shot as he was, running away. So lots to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm going to start by just basically explaining what my tweet was about for those of you that didn't see it. And basically, I just kind of like looked at the situation and I thought, this is not the first time something like this has happened. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff going on, a lot of controversy in America about police brutality, particularly aimed towards, African-American descent. And for me, it was just like, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I looked at it and I went, I have to make a stand now, and as a result, I put a tweet out saying, as a white male who I believe has the greatest privilege, so to speak, in our society right now, it is my duty to speak out about, the injustices that I believe are being dealt towards African American people, particularly regarding, police brutality and things like that. Although I do believe that it's a greater issue than that. It's not just police brutality, it's your society in general.
Absolutely.
And I think I bode an interesting perspective, considering that I have lived somewhere prior, and then I've obviously come over and seen how African American people are perhaps dealt with differently and treated differently. So I put that tweet out, a lot of people retweeted it, a lot of people liked it. I had the trolls out in force that were very quick to root me in my beliefs. Even one person as far as saying that I can't believe that you're announcing that you are a white male. So I felt it was my place to take a stand, and I think that other people need to follow suit. It was great to see that so many people supported that tweet, because I do believe that it's my place now, from this day forward, really, to advocate for equality, whether that's gender, whether that's race.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's kind of the premise of this talk. So Elise, I don't know if you want to start by kind of talking about how you felt about the situation, maybe if you can even remember how you felt at the time when the news broke, and kind of what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, so it literally hit so close to home. Mm-hmm. So many of the other cases that have transpired have been elsewhere.
Yeah.
In other places that I have never been or have heard about, and to see that happen, it's like another one, right? Mm-hmm. Firsthand that the Trayvon Martin case had a tremendous impact on me.
Definitely. Yeah.
And what I'm talking about to the Jack's viewers is back in February, I wanted to do something to honor Trayvon Martin in his life. He is another one who lost his life to not even someone who officially was a cop. It was someone who was on the street team to keep the community safe. And George Zimmerman took Trayvon's life because he feared for his life. He was told not to engage, and he did anyway. And that speaks to, I think, a complex that folks have. We can talk about that.
Absolutely.
A little bit here today.
Definitely.
That, I'm the person who can be the savior in this situation. I can make sure it's safe. Trayvon had Skittles and an Arizona tea. He was simply trying to get back home. And so he's not home. He is in under the ground and should be, I believe, 24 years old this year. And so that was one of the first cases for me, watching that from beginning to end and seeing that the verdict was not guilty. It was very troubling for me. And so I wanted to pay tribute to Trayvon. And what we did was kind of put some folks in hoodies.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Trayvon was in a hoodie that night. And the photo of him, that's pretty much very well known. He's in a hoodie. And I just wanted to put folks in a juxtaposition of like, you know, everybody wears a hoodie. That shit is not a threatening piece of clothing. Mm-hmm. I bet all of you have at least 3 in your closets right now.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting though? I just think that like with hoodies, it does have a negative, especially as you put the hood up. I know back home even it's like that kind of hoodlum culture of like, but it's, you know, how do you not know that he's trying to be safe for himself? Because I know that. And my mum will laugh about this if she's actually watching or listening to this, but I remember there was a time I was in the back end of London. It was a bit of a dodgy area. And we were in the car, and mum was like, what do we do? And I was just like, I just literally, instinctively, I just went like this. I went, if I can't see them, they can't see me. And it was just like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes when I'm like out in the street at night, it's like by me putting my hood up and almost feeling like I'm more of an intimidating figure, then people will leave me alone kind of thing. And I think that like maybe he was just worried about his own security. He thought, if I put my hood up and I look a bit more intimidating myself, then no harm will come to me. So you just don't know the context. And I just think that's so important. And, you know, sorry to interject.
That's spot on. And I think the weather was even inclement that evening as well. So that's all the project was we put... someone of, I believe, Aruna's Indian descent and
Asian descent,
Asian descent, and folks who black males, and some with hoods up, some smiling, and then another photo with vice versa, kind of switching that and helping people to think about, you know, we're all the same. We are all the same, and so that was really. I got great feedback on that. Isn't that
for me? Like I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, isn't that just the toughest thing of it all? We are all the same, and it baffles me how we still have people that exist today that really feel that they are superior, and it occurs in all walks of life. And it's whether even like within the same race, it's like for me, what gives you the right to believe that you're better than someone else? Like. For me, and this is how I see it, and you know, you may agree, you may not, but for me, it's just opportunities. Yeah. Like, I didn't come from the best financial background ever, but my mum sacrificed a lot for me to make sure that I had opportunities to continue my education, to come out here, and that's just, it's not necessarily luck per se, but what was stopping me being born into a family that had absolutely nothing, you know, was scraping the barrel to try and find electricity for their own home, and like, people don't get context. Right. People don't understand that some of these kids, that's all they know. And like in the same with like Antwon Rose's case, it's like, okay, so supposedly he was, you know, obviously in the drive-by shooting, you know, a few hours before, and I understand that, but like, people don't just go and shoot people, right? Maybe some of you out there think that this happens, and that people just one day they go, I'm going to go and shoot people. There are so many more complex variables that are at play here, you know, and certainly maybe in the area that he was brought up, that was normalised, or that was their way of earning money, or that was their way of feeling accepted. And people are just so quick to judge these people, and like that's what I think infuriates me the most. It's like you don't know the context behind it, and I understand. Like I'm not by any means condoning the fact that he was in a drive-by shooting, but what I am saying is that. In that moment when he ran away, he was just as scared as anyone else, and he was shot because of it, and that's partially why I believe, you know, it's my duty to kind of stand up and just say, hey, this is not okay. And like I said to you just before the podcast, you know, to be of an African American descent to say it is one thing. It holds its value, don't get me wrong, but like for someone that's not of the same race to speak out and say, actually, this is not right, I believe that that's going to be the that kind of changes things, because
Absolutely.
at the moment you look at, even still in Parliament, with policy and stuff, majority white, yes, things are moving in the right direction. We are getting
slowly but
more,
surely.
yeah, exactly, slowly but surely, but like for me it's like it needs to move at a quicker rate. We need to be equally represented, and I think that that's a big problem of like how people can't relate to certain individuals is because they don't know any different.
Right.
So,
and I think you made a good point earlier, is that lots of folks have not been in a place where they've not been in the majority.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it then makes it hard for them to grasp what it's like for the shoe to be on the other foot, and to not experience. I go back to a college experience I had. I had a friend from home come with me to school up to Slippery Rock, and we went to an all-black party, and she was white.
Yeah.
And I could tell from the moment we got in there that she was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, she didn't have a problem with black folks.
Right.
But I think for her, that was one of the first times, and even given her own college experience, that was one of the first times she had been
the minority.
One.
Yeah. Right.
in the minority. In the minority.
Yeah.
So, and she immediately left.
Yeah.
And how many times, why was college the first time that she'd experienced something like that? If folks had it much sooner, if folks embraced it, that's why we encourage, as a higher ed educator, we encourage folks to study abroad.
Yeah.
That's not the sole reason.
Right.
But one of the reasons is to experience what it's like to be different.
Definitely. Yeah. No, and I agree. And obviously I'm living proof of that, having been here for the last 6 years. And it gives you...
People know you immediately by your accent,
yeah, but
right?
Right, but it gives you perspective. It does. And that's the thing, where I hope to bring a new perspective to the table. It's like, in England, I believe that whether you're black, white, whatever race, you're seen as a person. Yeah. Whereas I believe in America, you are actually seen as a race. And it's crazy. For me, it's
our history.
It is, exactly. And
it's our history.
And that's the thing. It's like, how can we let this, exist? Right. And I thought it was really interesting what you said about the minority. Mm-hmm. It was an isolated occasion, and that young lady left, right?
Yes.
But imagine living your life in that situation, and then white people have the audacity to say to black people, "Oh, you need to get involved more. Like, come on. Like, why are you staying with your own race? Why are you sitting with your own race at lunch? It's like, because there is such a visible divide, and it's an elephant in the room. And of course, it's getting better, but it's still not fluid enough.
These cases abruptly remind us that there are still injustices.
Yeah, right, exactly, and
so that's why we're speaking up.
But
that's why we're angry.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. And people then jump on that. I had a few replies to my tweet yesterday, and it was just silly things like, doesn't matter whether it had been white or black, they would have got shot. I disagree with that.
I wholeheartedly do as well.
Because there's this stigma of black people, and forgive me if you think I'm wrong by saying this, that they are more aggressive, they are more violent, and as a result, I think if you'd have seen a white person run for their life, that cop would not, in his head, have thought that he would, that had the same effect, right?
Absolutely.
Now, for those that are listening, this is not me saying that I believe that the cop was racist. What I believe is that it's society's prejudice that are placed on black people that makes us subconsciously think in a certain way, and that's the thing. Like,
you got it.
People came out on Twitter and they were like, he wasn't racist. I actually agree with you. I don't think he was racist. I just think that the way society functions right now, there is a negative stigma towards black people, especially black males, exactly, in that kind of cultural sphere. And that was the reason he acted the way he did. He felt more threatened than he would have if it would have been a white person, in my opinion. And that for me is the crux of it. And that's why I want to speak about it, because, some people may come at me and say, oh, well, I think it was because, or I think that he was racist. No, I don't think he was racist. I just think that, and it's funny because even me being brutally honest with myself, I see where he's coming from. And it pains me to say it, but it's just the upbringing that I've had, particularly as I've made this transition to America. I think back home, as I said, we see each other as just people, so it's not as big of a deal. But as soon as I came over here and you introduce guns into the equation, you associate guns with black males, that's just been, you know, how society and even media's portrayed it. And I think that's another thing. Right, and I think that's what's kind of led me to, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously feel a little bit more intimidated, you know, towards black males than I may have white males. And it pains me to say it, do you know what I mean? But it's just kind of like this complex that I think that society's kind of, you know...
Yeah, media plays a huge piece of it, right? Our movies play a huge piece of it. All those things that we're constantly consuming. Yeah. If you aren't going out to figure it out for yourself, right, and engage black folks, male, female, to hear these stories, to create your own narrative, exactly, you are going to be ignorant, right? And so that's why it's so important that we begin to have conversations with one another. Don't be so defensive on Facebook when you see your folks of color saying, hear us, hear our pleas, stop killing us. Right. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying white lives don't matter. I
know. That could be a podcast in itself. I can't, like, that whole, like, all lives matter. I'm just like, they've missed the boat.
They do.
Completely.
All
like,
lives do matter.
I know, but they've, like...
But right now...
But it's like
black folks are being gunned down.
But they've missed the point of the movement. Absolutely. if they come out and they say that. That's what I'm saying.
But again, they're speaking from a place of privilege. Like, oh, you're attacking me. Oh, that's racist. Oh, like, no. But no, it's not. It's not. We are not seen as equal yet. Yep. We are not seen as equal yet until that situation with Antwon Rose and Trayvon Martin and Brown. The names go on and on. Until that's different and it doesn't happen, we have to continue to cry.
Yeah, to push.
And say, Black Lives Matter.
Right. And like, I just think that, like, why shouldn't you? You know, like, and I think that that's probably what upsets me is that when some white folk, you know, they come out and they contest that, it's like, you have no idea what their life has been like. You have no idea how it's felt to be in a place of the minority your whole life. Right. And... what I love about the movement, as much as actually standing for injustice, is actually how much solidarity there's been in the African American community. And I think that was what propelled my tweet yesterday, because a lot of people that were retweeting it and liking it were of that descent. And it was almost like, wow, it's nice for them anyway. It was like, oh, it's nice to see a white male stand up and say the same things we are, because it is existing. And I think the fact that we don't talk about it openly, and that's what I said to a lot of the people that contested me yesterday. I wrote a few replies back and I said, if anything, the fact that we've had this conversation is enough, because the fact that we've had this conversation means that we're moving the conversation forward. Yes. And I understand that you might not agree with how I feel, and I understand that you might not agree with me, but we're having a conversation. Yes. And that for me is what's lacking right now, is that there is no... or very little conversation. Exactly. And you even saw it with the political cycle. It was very polarised, very black or white. Yes. And not enough conversations were happening in the middle to say, this is why I feel this way. Well, why do you feel that way? And even I was guilty of it. You know, I struggle with some points on the other side sometimes myself. Yes, and we're not going to talk about politics, because this really shouldn't be a political podcast. But, you know, and I just feel like we need to talk more. Both sides need to come together and talk more, and talk in an arena where they feel safe, saying whatever they want to say. And I think that it's very difficult right now, because if they say something that many perceive to be too extreme, then they get jumped on, and then, you know, they then feel... They shut down, exactly. And again, that's something that was very reflective of the political cycle just gone, I think, is that once people jumped on that person, they were like... I'm not going to change my opinion now because I feel belittled. I feel like you've been condescending towards me. I don't want to change how I feel, because in my experience, and that's the thing, like for me, whenever I consider, you know, political beliefs, even, you know, with this situation, it's like, let's consider where you've come from. Mm-hmm. And once we consider where you've come from, and this is why I love psychology, it's like all these little pieces of your childhood and your upbringing have led you to have this opinion, right? It's not just come out of thin air. This has been pieces that have come together, and I believe that we then have to break down, okay, well, why are they thinking this way, to unlock where did it not necessarily go wrong, but where did this opinion change? Did you have an isolated experience with a black person that put you off the whole race? Right. And that's another thing. It's like one person doesn't define a race, and that's good. I know, but that's the thing. Like I feel like someone will have a negative experience with a particular race, and that's it. There's no redemption there.
It makes me think like, when we train our police officers to go out on the street, the force, do they do some of this bias training and to break down some of those past experiences?
Yeah.
Are we doing that before they get out? And I would argue that we probably don't.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. But what I will say, in defence of a lot of the police officers, I have seen videos.
Not everybody's bad.
Right, exactly.
Not
and that's
every
the
cop
thing.
is bad.
Right, and that's the thing.
Not every
and
black person.
Right, exactly. And that's but that isn't that the thing though. It's like we've got to play both sides because someone said to me about again in response to the tweet they were saying about how like you're labelling like all white cops to be out for black people, and I'm like, no. And then they talked about how the media kind of spins this narrative of like police brutality, and I'm like, okay, well you can say that, but every white mass shooter in this country has never been labelled a terrorist, yet all of a sudden you have one Muslim person shoot one person and they're a terrorist, right? So it's kind of like, okay, you can have it your way, but then you've got to do it for both, right? And that's where this inequality comes from. It's like, okay, I hear you,
yes,
but then you've got to apply it to the other side too, and that's the thing. And I just believe that it's,
and that's what angers us as well, right? You think of what happened at the Tree of Life. You think of what happened, countless other mass shootings. They've been mostly white males,
right?
Would you say?
Yeah,
and they have been detained alive,
right? But what do they also say about that person? It was an anomaly. It was an exception. There's
mental illness.
Right, there's mental illness. But hang on. Right? So we're saying that, all of a sudden if one black person shoots someone else, all of a sudden it's a black person problem. It's not all, like, do you know what I mean? Whereas with white people, one person shoots, mass shooting, even in New Zealand, thankfully New Zealand actually did come out and say that it was a white terrorist, which is fantastic on their part. But
that Prime Minister, she's badass.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But then she stood up and had the balls, and I hate to say that, I don't want to be, but that's, to say...
First of all, I love that she's not going to say his name.
Exactly.
That was cool.
But also, the fact that she has labelled him a terrorist, and why are we not doing it in this country? We are so... And again, it's a media problem, the fact that they are so quick to disclose details, to give that person their 5 seconds of fame before they go out, and it's atrocious. But like you said, they've killed all this many people, yet they're still detained unharmed. Yet you've got this guy who was supposedly, even at the time of the call, they didn't know for sure that it wasn't him involved in the drive-by shooting. It was just, supposedly, which again, obviously it was found later that, that did happen. But the point is, they didn't give him a chance. And here's my deal. If they had come towards the cop, then they've got no choice. Yeah, it is. And it is. And it's white, black, doesn't matter. If they're approaching you in a violent manner, you do what you do. And again, it's his safety. But the fact that they were running scared changes the situation for me. So
absolutely. It's disheartening, right? And it's trauma that every time this happens and it becomes national news, and what scares me is the ones that we don't hear about.
Yeah.
It's trauma, and so you carry that weight with you. And when I go into Sheetz and I'm the only one, when I go to the mall, when I go to the movies, when I'm, purchasing a car, when I'm, getting my education, it's constantly something. It's another piece of the black tax of what we have to carry with and deal with. We know that we are viewed a certain way, so we have to conduct ourselves a certain way.
That's crazy.
We have to constantly be better than.
And that's what I feel. And that's what I was going to ask you as well. Do you feel like, especially in Western Pennsylvania, which is heavily white,
I'm born and raised.
Do you feel like you almost like have to not necessarily put on an act, but like you just kind of alluded to, you have to kind of like. Be over the top nice to feel accepted, because just being you is not enough.
Yeah. Sometimes. Well, I like to think just in general, I'm over the top nice.
I'll second that.
But I do understand that, I do conduct myself in a certain way because I am representing, whether I want to or not, a race of people. Right. And so
they're so heavily stigmatized.
Absolutely. And so I like to make sure that I speak well. I like to make sure I'm dressed well. All of that because I want to change the narrative of how people, especially if I can do it, change the narrative of how people see black women. Right? Black males have their own thing, but for black women, it's like, oh, we're loud. Oh, we're always angry. And I mean, devil's hat.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's that is what it is. And I will continue to try to be the difference, and I will continue to have conversations like this. Right. That's what I told myself after, and tweeted myself after the verdict on Friday evening, is what I will continue to do as an educator is in my sphere of influence, ensure that the folks around me appreciate difference, no matter what that looks like. And that's what's important, because I can't go out and change the world. Yeah. As much as we can try. We believe that, and because of this conversation, we will. That's part of this work. Right. Is getting up on a Sunday morning when after working all weekend. It's like, no, this matters, right? We got to be the difference and have conversation, and so I will be part of the difference and be part of the change. Yeah. All the quotes that can go along with that I believe from Fred Rogers and the Dalai Lama. We look for the helpers. Yeah. Fred Rogers, look for the people who are making a difference. And so it is burdensome. It is trauma. And you really don't even realize it until, I get nervous for the little kids because they're seeing history in front of them even younger and younger. Yeah, absolutely. Social media. What does this do for a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old? Mommy, what is happening? Right. Explain. It makes me think, like, do I want to have children? Yeah.
Have we got the infrastructure in place as well to deal with those things? Like, are the kids getting the support in schools and education where they can handle this? Because like you said, it's just so crazy now how much information younger people have access to. Absolutely. And it's like
that you and I even didn't.
Right, exactly. I mean, I remember my first proper phone was when I was, I think, 12 years old. And it was not even colour phone. It was a Siemens A55. It was terrible. And you think what children are getting exposed to today, and it's just
because they got an iPad, they got an iPhone,
right? Exactly, and it's
YouTube.
All of it. And it's now, is it becoming normalised? But yeah, for me, it's has it got to the point now where it's another one? And we just move on with our life. Yeah. And that's, for me, was where it was the last straw yesterday, because it was at what point as a white male am I going to stand up and say enough's enough? And it was just it kind of hit me, and I was because, obviously with my new business as well, I've been looking at trying how do we change the world both naturally with, what we're doing, the destruction we're doing with deforestation, things like that, but also what's going on with the people? How do we create a better world socially? And I think this is one of the major steps that I'm taking for myself, irrespective of the company, to try and change the world for the better for people, not just the actual world itself, because that was why I created the business. I believe that there is so much going wrong with this world right now in terms of how we're conducting ourselves with pollution and all the rest, all that kind of stuff. But then you look at the people side as well. There's so much injustice still. There's so much inequality still. And people say to me, oh, there's not that much injustice. Yeah, or there's not that much injustice anymore. And I'm there's not that much injustice anymore. So you're saying that there actually is still injustice. It's just that it's probably not affecting you and your race. And that's what upsets me, is it's you're admitting that it still occurs, yet you are not willing to stand up for...
That's a very surface level answer. You're not willing to dig a little deeper.
Dig a little deeper, or just... Again, it boils back to that privilege thing. It's it doesn't affect me. So why should I care?
It was interesting to watch my Facebook Friday night after the trial.
Right, yeah, I bet. That was very interesting.
Because I'm born and raised here in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, I have white friends who are able to not engage in this conversation because it doesn't affect them. So silence speaks very loudly.
And isn't that a thing as well? And I think that's
it must be nice. Yeah. It must be nice, but I'm so glad to be black because I have to have these tough conversations. I feel this. I want to start crying now because it matters so much. Yeah. And we need folks like yourself to say enough is enough. Right. And speak out and be encouraged and be willing to challenge folks when they have these ignorant beliefs.
Right. And that's the thing. It's just tough because there are so many people, that don't even think about it, right? And
that's a thing that happened. It's on the news,
right? And it's How lucky are those people that they don't have to think about it? Because, like, for yourself, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, probably every day something happens where you're like, I have to act up, or I have to do this, or I have to do that, just because of your skin colour. Like, this is the 21st century. We should not be having to worry about what we look like anymore. And that's where, for me, England, you know, before I came here, we don't really look at skin colour. I mean, definitely there was, like, we still have our problems with, like, Eastern European people coming over, but it's more of like a national identity crisis than it is a racial crisis, I think, you know, and that's what sucks. It's like, you know, we can talk about sexual equality, we can talk about how people identify themselves gender-wise, you know, there's all these things that, honestly, I think people are scared. I think, honestly, it's where it comes from, because, like, and this is me being brutally honest as well, it's like, when I see black people and the culture of being very, you know, larger than life and being very, like, you know, heavily involved, and like your family, how important that is to you guys, and how strong you are together as a white male, it can be intimidating. And it's intimidating because you have the power to upend white people, right? And this is the crazy thing, because for me, white people, because we're so privileged, we don't need solidarity, right? Because we've got it, right? We don't need to stay together because, you know, I've never been judged.
Absolutely.
But for you guys, when you show this solidarity, when you show this strength in numbers, it rubs people the wrong way. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like, this could... And do you know what they say? Exactly, and they go, this could be a problem for us. If we don't stop this, or we don't contest this, what's going to happen? You know, and that fear of the unknown, I believe, is what led to a political cycle turning out the way it did. I believe that it's the reason that the whole Black Lives Matter became, well, why don't all lives matter? Because they are fearful of how powerful this movement is, and how deep down they know that this should be right and this needs to happen, but they're like, well, once it's a level playing field, well, hell. And this is the thing with white people as well. And again, like, I'm being very stereotypical here, and a lot of these things maybe you don't agree with, but again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, is because we are in a place of such privilege, we don't need to work as hard, right? So, like, I know loads of people that don't really do a whole lot in their spare time, because they're like, I got this. I can turn up to a job interview. I'm not going to get scrutinised. I'm probably going to get hired for this job. Whereas some of the most hard-working people I've seen are the minorities, because they have to fight to be equal, and they have to fight so hard to be equal that if it was a level playing field.
Oh yes.
Do you know what I mean? And that's
remember that college admissions scandal over it?
Yeah. And that's just, you know, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's just so many issues out there that just stem from this fear. That's what it is. And why do people act out usually? It's through fear, you know, and that's what, I think we saw during the political campaign. It was like, we are so scared right now. Who's the figure that we look to show that themselves is the most intimidating figure, that they're not going to take no BS.
Right.
And look what happened. You know, and again, not trying to make this a political podcast, but I feel it adds to my own perception of why there is such injustice, is because people are fearful, because they know that here's the wave, and right now, where I'm at in my life, that's not going to cut it. Right. If this actually happens and successful, then heck. Wow. And it's a big problem that I've seen in England, is that a lot of the narrative with the Eastern European people coming over when we're in the EU and what potentially led to Brexit is like, oh, they're stealing our jobs. No, they're not. No, they're not. Get educated, get in a trade, and earn your stripes. Earn your stripes. And for me, not enough people do that today, especially white people. Sorry, but that's just how I see it. And it's because we've got it already. Everything's been given to us. And I'm even guilty of that. And I try and work so hard
for that to not be the case.
Because I want, when people say to me, oh yeah, you know how it is.
to
And
do
I'm like,
that.
you're right, but I'm still working my damn hardest so that I can even elevate from where I grew up to set a new standard for my future family and my future kids, and also be able to stand next to people like yourself and say, this has got to change.
Right.
So that's just, you know, and that was a little bit of a rant, so I apologise, but that's just how I feel, and I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah,
and it's
important though.
Yeah.
I think some of the reason we don't even have the conversation is because of fear. You're hitting the nail right on the head with that, and we have to say, again, how many times have we said it already, is enough is enough.
Yeah.
And we are going to force ourselves to be in conversation where we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we're going to hear some things that we don't want to hear.
Right.
But in order for us to keep moving forward, we have got to say that this is wrong and we want to see a change.
Yeah.
And it's going to be we.
That's what I mean. And right now I feel like as yourself, as your race, I feel it's not going to be enough. As much as you guys are going to fight until white people take on that responsibility as well, will it not change? And it sucks for me to say that, and maybe you feel that's not right, but I feel that that's the truth, because right now we're the people that have, you know, supposedly the most privilege, and until we start the conversation, and I feel like, honestly, and this may be way out of line as well, and I might get in big trouble here, but I don't care, because that's why we're having this conversation. It's like, I believe that white males, because stereotypically we're less emotional beings to women, and a lot, obviously, the industries and things like that are very heavily white male dominated, that they don't really give a second thought. It's like, I'm okay, right? I'm providing for my wife, my kids, so we're good.
Yep.
We're good. I don't need to look outside the four walls of my house to know that I'm good and that we're good, right? And even like maybe they're like close relatives. Are they good? All right, well, we're good. But it's not about that anymore. It's about a larger humanitarian issue and a crisis, I believe, worldwide, not just in America. America, I'm giving you a lot of stick, but it needs to go larger than this. It needs to go bigger than this.
How can we, Jack, get folks who believe that, right? Say there are folks who believe that. How do we get them? How do we reach those people? What does that look like?
And honestly, that was part of like why I started my business, because it's like, how can I affect as many people as possible? So for me, it was like, if I create clothing where if you wear it, then that says to other people consciously, I want to change the world for the better. I am moving towards, personally, but also as a world, towards a world that is trying to reduce pollution, is trying to help other people irrespective of race, gender, you know, sexual orientation, all the rest of it.
Right.
And that's why I started the business, because I'm like, I think I can get in here. And I think if more people can just buy in, literally, and wear the stuff. And that's the thing, like, I think people think, oh, this is a quick fad to try and get a couple of bucks. I do not give a rat's backside about the money. For me, it's not about that, and that's why our profit margins are so tight, because I want to produce good quality clothing. I want to produce something subtle. That's why I believe that people don't traditionally wear charity clothing, because when they wear it, it's plastered all over. It doesn't look that aesthetic. It's kind of like, okay, and people almost switch off to it. Whereas, like, if I can create a brand that people can unify behind, and just kind of know that if they see on the transit that someone else is wearing that brand,
then they get it.
They know.
It's like Tom's, right?
Right, exactly. And it wasn't necessarily the model I was basing it on. It was more like, I looked at what Lokai did with the bracelets, but I was like, bracelets aren't enough. You know, like, bracelet, okay, I've got 3 bracelets on right now. You probably you haven't asked what the bracelets are. B, didn't even probably see them somewhere in a hoodie, right?
Right.
But with the t-shirts in your face, it's like, oh, and then what I'm hoping is that people go, oh, that looks a pretty cool brand. What's that? And it starts a conversation. It's like, oh, it's Empower. They give away 10% to a non-profit of your choice, and they're trying to make the world a better place. And I believe, and what I said in my elevator pitch as well, we're at breaking point. When are people going to wake up? You know, that's the thing. Like, when are people going to wake up and go, this, and this is the funny thing, is that it doesn't affect people now, but it will. And if it doesn't affect you, it's going to affect your kids. And if it doesn't affect them, it's going to affect your grandkids. And people are so short-sighted in that regard.
People start caring, right, is when it eventually hits their family.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a shame. I don't have to be a waitress to understand that they are hustling to just try to make a couple bucks,
Yeah.
to try and pay for books, to
Exactly.
try and pay to put food
Yep.
on the table and this and that.
Yeah.
I can understand and come from a place of compassion,
Right.
even though I've never stood in those shoes before.
Absolutely.
And this country has a bad reputation of being like that. Well, until it affects me is when
Yeah.
I suddenly become
Right.
woke and understand.
Exactly.
Well, how about you have an open ear before
Yeah.
it affects you?
Right.
Right? And that's where black folks are. And because we have so much, and I'm going to just keep saying it,
Yeah.
black tax, we understand the LGBTQ grind. We
Yeah.
understand women. We understand, like, the inequalities are easy for us to understand because we're
Already
carrying it
part of the
ourselves and
minority.
already
Exactly.
part
Yeah.
of already part of it. And so because so many folks are standing from a place of privilege, we need them to have an open ear.
Yeah.
Don't let
But it's
the
just
media
empathy
read
though,
more-
right?
It is. I would agree with that, but I don't know what I was saying. That should be enough,
Yeah.
and that should be the reason. But
Right.
but why don't more people? I guess I keep asking you that. Like, why don't more people have empathy? Why can't we get more white males to see
Yeah.
that? Like, just because you're good, okay, that there are other people who aren't good.
Yeah.
How do you say, like, okay, get outside of my own bubble to say, okay, let me reach back. Let me reach back and help somebody else.
Yeah. I think
Need more people to feel that call.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that stems from just the fact that when people get brought up, you know, maybe their financial situation has been tight and they've always kind of like been very focused on themselves. But I just think that my mum always brought me up and said, like, think of others before yourself, and it always has stuck with me, always. And like, okay, I also she's great, she's my world. But when we think about, you know, helping others and what really baffles me about the whole situation is that we're supposed to be majority Christian in this country. And I see a lot of people going to mass.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people that engage with Christianity. And I remember, if anything, because I did get brought up in a Christian household, you know, I'm a bit more like non-denominational now. I'm still trying to I'm on my own faith journey.
Yeah.
But we are stewards of this world. And it's preached many a time in the Bible and how we should love our neighbours and all the rest of it. And I just think, even if you're not religious, I think we have a duty. I don't know where it comes from, whether it's morality or whatever, and people may contest that.
A whole other podcast.
To help other people. But at the same rate, I believe that if you are a Christian and you are supposedly religious, then where is your compassion for these people that are being dealt with unjustly? And when we get into the deep south and there's still even like, you know, Ku Klux Klan and all the rest of it, it's like, what religion would ever, that supposedly with this God that, you know, is all loving and all caring and loves us all equally, what world would there want to be any segregation or any discrimination? Right? Exactly. And that's the thing. And for me, it's like, where did you forget compassion if you're supposedly religious, you're going to church, this is being preached, yet we're not applying it to today, and how can we go and show that compassion? And part of it's just having this conversation, like, am I going out and volunteering for hours on end? No, I'm not. You know, do I wish I had the time to do that? Yes, I do. But at the same rate, by having these conversations and hopefully letting other people hear these conversations as well, because I believe that this is an important conversation, that's when we're going to start moving. That's when we're going to start gaining more traction. And even if some of these people don't agree, but they've heard it, and then they've gone and spoke to someone else, they said, listen to this podcast, see what you think. I think it's a load of crap, but I want to hear your take. That's what we need. That's what we need. And that's why I was so happy with my tweet, because it started conversations from the other side that don't agree that this is happening, but it allowed them to engage in a very... And honestly, a lot of the people, there was no swearing involved, there was no, like, having a go at me personally. And that's what I said to one of them. I said, I like the fact that we've had an articulate conversation
Attacking
here,
the idea,
and that we've attacked the idea, and I said that, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm not out there to, if you don't agree with me on this podcast, which is absolutely fine, because I presume that there will be people out there that don't. I'm not there for you to, and you can attack me. You know, if you want to attack me, you know, personally, then go ahead. All right, but that's on you. That's not on me. You know, if you want to attack me, then obviously you feel very, very vulnerable to go past the idea and straight to me. Now, I'm happy to entertain discourse about the idea, but if you're going to talk to me, talk about the idea, right? Don't talk about me, because you don't know where I've come from. You don't know what's happened to me in my life. And just the same, I don't know what's happened to you in your life that may have constructed your ideals and your morals, but I know what my morals are, and I stand for them, and I'm not going to go anywhere with them, you know, in terms of I'm not going to budge. I am going to listen. And honestly, if you can test it and you're like, wow, I didn't actually think of it like that, then more power to you. You know, that's why we have these conversations, because I want to know how the opposition's feeling. I then want to know how can we bridge the gap to become more understanding of one another, not just actually the whole situation. So it's, that's why I'm having this conversation. That's why we're doing this podcast, to try and just bring it to the surface. Just put it on the table, and you make of it what you want to make of it. You may agree with it, you may disagree with it, but it's on the table now, and that's the purpose of this podcast.
Absolutely. Just like we encourage children to play with one another and to share, just like we hopefully encourage our politicians to reach across the aisle and converse with one another to come up with common sense laws that will help us, right? It's the same thing when we're outside of those forums. We have to say, okay, I'm going to hear you from a place of caring and empathy, right? And to say, I haven't walked that walk. I haven't lived that life. Please.
But that's why we talk, right? Because then it's like...
But we're right now, all we want to do is this. Everybody's got Twitter fingers. You know, and we need to take a step back from some of that and, you know, get out into these places and have these conversations. I think that is truly where we can start. Maybe it sounds very cliche and unattainable, but I wholeheartedly disagree. You know, we make time to watch our shows. Certainly you can make time to get some folks in a room in a safe environment where we say, we're going to listen. Do you have to go old school and have a stick where, all right, I'm going to not speak over you.
You catch the ball. That's it. Yeah, exactly.
And then we're all ears on you. We need to go, as much as we've propelled forward, there are some things that we could honestly bring back. And I think that's one.
Yeah, and like, I think you made a really great point. Like, we're very quick to judge. We're very quick to type on our keyboards. But who's taking that extra step to physically meet with these people? And I actually read a really good article recently about how to improve team performance. And they said that communication was the biggest one.
Absolutely.
And they said that actually trumps intellect, skill set of the group combined just by having better communication. And one of the things they said is that the most optimum communication has to be face-to-face.
Absolutely.
And then it's
there's
phone
no
call.
Tone in text. There's no, like...
We have emojis, but really...
Right.
But then you get people that don't... And this is another thing, because we move so quickly with technology... And this is a completely different podcast. It's like, how do we communicate now? Because some people know how to use emojis, some people don't. Some people, you know, you read a text and you're like, oh, wow, they're angry at me. And actually, no, they're just maybe one of the older generation that doesn't even know what an emoji is, you know, and they use a lot of periods, whereas like other younger people might not. And it's like, we never got taught how to text. No one did. We've got taught how to write and read, but not talk via text. And I don't know whether that's even being implemented in the education system right now, you know, in elementary schools, because it's like, what do you derive? And I always find it really interesting, like, you know, when I text, and when I read other texts, like, what is being implied here? But sometimes it can be just as superficial as it looks. But other times it can't be, you know. So it's really interesting because you don't get body language. So.
And I don't know if I annoy some of my colleagues because if I can come down to your office and chat with you, I'm going to do that first before sending an email because you don't know, like, again, it's just left up to you to interpret, which I'd rather engage with you so you can know exactly 100%. What I mean.
Exactly.
And
but you also get stuff done that way, and that's what the article said. It's like, because you can't get away from someone. If you send someone an email, they'll look at it and they'll go, I'll get to it. Whereas if you literally get in front of them, it's like, the worst thing they can say to you is, I'll get back to you, like, let me just prepare something, you know? Whereas I feel like with an email, it's really like, I can look at this and leave it for a week. Or I might not even answer it. And the same with the text as well, like, and it always made me laugh, and again, we're going a little bit off topic, so I'll get back on in a second, but when we talk about texting, when you text someone and they don't like reply to you straight, or they might reply to you straight away, so then you send them another text, and then it's like 3 hours. So like, let's just put that into like perspective. So if I said to you, hey Elise, and you went, hey Jack, how's it going? And I went, how are you? And you just walked off, and you came back 3 hours later and you went, I'm good, thanks, how are you? Like, this is where with this divide is happening. Like, we don't get taught etiquette with text, and maybe that's not even I don't know, but like for me, it's like, why? If you're texting back and forth, have the courtesy to say, hey, look, I'm just getting on with something right now. BRB, exactly. Simple as that. I'll get back to you in a little bit, rather than all of a sudden it's like ghost. And then sometimes they never come back. Yeah. So sometimes they say, how are you? And then they just go and then never come back. But anyway, completely off topic. Coming back
it's
to...
all connected,
it is. But I tell you what.
Because we don't communicate well, we're in a situation where this narrative of black males is being completely misconstrued and is problematic to our humanity.
Agreed.
And it's going to take us understanding and taking a step outside of our comfort zone to communicate with one another and say, you matter. Mm-hmm.
But we all matter. That's what I mean. We all matter. That's the thing. Like, and that's the thing with Black Lives Matter. It's not to say that we don't all matter. It's to say that here's the group that are being stigmatized. Yeah. Here's a minority group that, because they are the minority, can't stand up for themselves altogether. Absolutely. We need people from the majority to join and to have the conversations in order to make this actually become a real deal. So that is a pretty good way to end, I think, my first podcast. Thank you ever so much, Eve, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Hopefully you guys at least listened. If you got to this point, thank you ever so much. Feel free to subscribe, like this video, dislike this video as well, because I'm actually really interested to see how many people actually don't agree with what me and Elise said. So thank you ever so much for sticking around, guys. If you do want to have another podcast in the future, write it in the comments. If you don't want there to be another podcast in the future, write it in the comments and we will go from there. So thank you ever so much, guys, and I will see you later.